All right, there we go. Federal government introduces legislation to change, to delay changes to the MAID law until next year. What is MAID? Let's stop there. What is MAID? MAID is medical assistance in dying. Canada has some of the most liberal rules when it comes to medical assisted in dying. They do. Canada does. They have the most liberal aspects of it all. They've got it as broad as possible. And they were set to introduce something this year. And I'm going to look at why the pause is. Because I read the comments to this article a little bit, and they're all like, oh, it means the federal government seems they got something wrong. The federal government seems they got something wrong. Well, it's actually not that. They're not putting a motion into delay because they want to reevaluate it. The article expresses this. They want to delay it for a very different reason. But I want to get into the article a little bit here. Let's look at what the article actually says. The federal government tabled legislation on Thursday to delay until next year an expansion of Canada's medical assisted in dying law to allow mental illness as a sole condition. Yep, you read that right. Or you heard that right. Canada is seeking to expand medical assisted in dying to people with the sole underlying cause being a mental illness. What is a mental illness? Depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism spectrum disorder. Yeah, you read that right. These things which have treatments, they're offering death. Death. Yeah. All right, let's read here. The MAID legislation was set to expand this March, a change that would have made the country's euthanasia rules one of the broadest in the world. It is clear more time is needed to get this right, Justice Minister David Larnett said in a news conference Thursday. Now, if you stop there, you'd be going, okay, that's good. They're reevaluating it. They're reevaluating it, right? Actually, they're not. Let me show you what they're actually doing. The one-year delay comes after months of controversy revealed divisions among psychiatrists who would be needed to approve mental health patients for an assisted death, as well as concerns from a number of mental health and disability organizations. Psychiatric department heads at top universities and clinics, clinicians, working with the most severely ill patients raised the risk that people may receive an assisted death when they still had a chance to recover, especially without strict guidelines to assess complex cases. Now, that is probably a valid point. That is a valid point. Saying they may have a chance of recovery. And I could say that about anything in the medically assisted in dying. People make mistakes, there are problems. I could say that in anything. But they want to expand it. But it says nationally practices standards will be ready only in March. However, leaving little time for regulatory bodies and hospitals to adopt them. A federally funded curriculum for doctors will not be available until the fall, and the parliamentary committee studying the issue had delayed the final report until mid-February, creating a compressed timeline for their recommendations to factor into the legislation or standards. There's the real reason for the delay. It's not a moral question. It's not a delay issue. The article starts by trying to make it sound like, oh, they're actually reconsidering this after the objections. No. What the real issue is, it's just too quick. That's all it is. It's like if we're going to pass this now, it was supposed to be ready in March. It's not going to leave them any time. It's not going to leave them time to get this in. That's what it is. It's got nothing to do with them saying, oh, maybe this is a bad idea. It has to do with we're just passing it in the practice standard will be ready only in March, and there's no time for them to adopt it. That's what it is. They want to delay it for a year, not on moral grounds, but just because they need a little more time to adopt it. This is no different than the mechanic calling me and when I bought my car in the shop and saying, hey, I know we told you that we'd have it ready tomorrow, but the parts just arrived, so we need a little more time. Can we delay it back until the day after tomorrow? That's literally what they're doing. They're not going, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. They're just going, we just want more time to implement it. That's all it is. Mr. Lametti said the pause would give provinces and territories more time to prepare for the change. See? It's got nothing to do with rethinking the legislation. It's got nothing to redo with thinking, saying, okay, maybe not. It's just give the provinces more time. He said he expected the amendment legislation to pass before the March 17 deadline. If it doesn't, the existing law allowing the expansion will come into effect. Under current MAID legislation, and here's how it is, only capable adults with a non-terminal physical illness may receive an assisted death. Did you catch that? Under current MAID legislation, only capable adults with a non-terminal physical illness. That means technically if I'm paralyzed and I don't want to live that way anymore, they'll offer me death. And it says if they have an irremediable condition that is causing them intolerable suffering, and if there's no treatment that the patient feels they are acceptable. You see how broad this is already? This is just if I've got a condition that has made my life intolerable suffering, and I get to decide that, then they'll kill me for free. Now, what has it actually done? And here's the scary part in Canada. They bury these stories, but you can find them. Where a veteran who was having a difficult time for VA, they didn't offer him help, but they offered him MAID. They offered him assisted in dying. The poor, they're offering it. They'll offer it to poor people as well. You see the problem where it's going? And there's also in the books that they're trying to open it up to mature minors, I guess is the term they're using. You're hearing that right. Teenagers. They're offering it to teenagers who haven't even lived a fraction of the lifetime. They're offering it to. And without people being, without the parents having to know. Without parents' permission. In 2022, the first full year this criteria allowed, roughly 500 patients without a foreseeable death received MAID, according to Health Canada estimate, among the 10,000 total cases. 10,000 total cases. Currently, patients with a mental illness may receive MAID, but only if they also suffer from a quality of physical condition. The expansion into mental illness as the sole reason was controversial because research shows that psychiatrists often struggle to reliably predict recovery rates for patients. There were concerns that, especially without clear guidelines, doctors might mistake patients making a rational choice to receive MAID with those experiencing suicidal ideation. Ideation. A common symptom of mental illness. You think? You think that's a problem? Yeah, of course it's a problem. Because according to this, how many single fathers suddenly through a divorce would qualify for MAID? Because the depression rate is incredibly high amongst men who've been divorced. I think they need to add the criteria that before anybody would even be able to accept this, although I'm against MAID in its entirety, they should require spiritual counseling. You know, the ones who actually encourage life over death. This is mental health advocates also pointed to treatment delays in the healthcare system, which have been exacerbated by the pandemic and the role that limited affordable housing options, poverty, and lack of social support often play in a patient outcomes. This is delaying the expansion for MAID for mental illness is only the tip of the iceberg of what Canada government must do, said Ramon Colho, a family physician whose practice is predominantly low-income and marginalized patients who has been a vocal critic of expanding MAID to mental illness. Her patients, she says, often have trouble accessing timely care and affordable housing. Canada has not done its part to ensure them a quality of life that should rightfully be theirs. See, this is the problem here. Who's determining quality of life, for one? Because this is the same argument they'll use for abortion. Why abortion happened? Because the child wouldn't have a good quality of life. They wouldn't have a quality of life. So we'll just kill them in the womb. So what you're seeing, the expansion of MAID here, is just an expansion of that thought. You don't have quality of life. How's Canada seeming to fix its medical problem? Well, we're not going to offer them treatment. We're going to offer them that death is a release from all this. We're going to offer them that death is the thing rather than life. You say, how could it come to this? How could we come to this? The answer is easy. The answer is simple. When you get a culture that has cut off the very author of life, and a culture that has taken away the good shepherd who has come to give us life and life abundantly, they open themselves up to the one who is nothing more than the thief who wants to come to steal, kill, and destroy. When you have taken away life, the only other option is death. And our culture and our country has become accepting of death from the grave, from the birth to the grave, where babies who were supposed to be in the most safest place in the mother's womb are being torn out. That death has invaded that place. Why should we then expect a culture to suddenly say at the other end, well, if your life just isn't worth living according to you, we'll help you die? Because we become a culture of death rather than a culture of life. What these people really need is not so much psychiatric help. They need spiritual help. They need the help of the one who is life. That is what is needed. This type of thing not only does it break my heart to read about, but it makes me angry. It does. Because life is precious. It is a gift that has been given to us. And we're living in a culture that is expanding death, not life. That is what is happening. And why? Because again, they've removed the foundation of the truth of Jesus Christ. And the only thing left then when you remove life is death. And our culture and our world is accepting it and telling people that it is a good thing. Look, to leave this realm without being under the grace of Jesus Christ, you're not going from suffering to peace. You are going from suffering to unimaginable suffering. That is what is happening. It is Jesus who undoes these things. It is Jesus who undoes the curse. It is Jesus who brings healing. That is what is needed. It is time to stop trying to treat these spiritual ailments with physical means and start turning them over to the one who can truly heal, and that is Jesus. That is what is absolutely needed. And we live in a culture that needs to repent. That is what we need. Thanks for joining me for that segment. If you'd like the full episode, you can kind of click the button up there. I'll give you for the full episode. And if you'd like to actually help out, subscribe to the channel, like to the channel. That would be right here. You just click that. Help me out. Hope you enjoy it. May you continue to grow in God's blessing.